boys, we're in the middle of page 124. Al-Kain Beltisa Feksha Anu Higano Leit Azod. He says for sure we've reached this time where it's a time of difficulty, time of crying. We see people crying all over. The whole Europe is crying. Because all over in Israel, you hear sounds of crying from anywhere that they are. It's tremendous, great sounds of crying. And we're confused. But Poland, you don't have to say, I don't even need to tell you what happened to the Jewish people in Poland. Slovakia, and the country of Slovakia, where he actually came from. They wrote from all the countries in Europe. The destruction they did from killing, murders, and all the different cruelties they did. From children and babies, ad save until people that were very old. Everybody was all kinds of tortures were done and horrible things were done. And the destruction of the communities. Great communities showing were filled with scholars and sofrim and scribes, means lesser scholars. In Pirchei Eladim, with young children that were flowering, who were flowering in Torah and Yot Shemayim. They were all sent away to a land that was decreed, called land that had nothing that was there. I'm not even quite sure if he knew where they were going at this point, but they just knew they were sent away. This is taken from the keynote. My heart cries on their corpses, and my innards cry on their corpses. Was there ever a greater type of crying that we had in this period of time? In other words, a rhetorical question. The same way what the Zohar says, the crying is really referring to difficulties and oppression and poverty. It happened in our times. Why? Because the prophecy of the Zohar is really what we're seeing. Not just it got people killed. The mamon shiswal hachol timyon, or the wealth of the Jewish people was taken away. We went into nothing. Woe to our eyes. That we saw how the wealth of the money was just taken away wantonly in Medina, Slovakia, where he came from, and he saw this. They took everything from the Jews, milavushim, from garments, to clay bayit, and house utensils, and anything that was movable, whatever could be moved, they took away. And they made a decree in Slovakia, the Nazis made a decree that if anyone saw that a Jew had something, mutar lo that whatever you see somebody had to say, the Jew give it to me, the Jew had to give it to him. And this is the first kinds of decrees, and so the Jews were left with nothing. They took everything away from them. They were left barren and naked from possessions. And it was carried out the pasuk in Tilim, not rape, but the pillage of the poor and the cries of the Avyonim. Ata akum yomar Hashem. From now I will come, says Hashem, when they're crying and this is when Hashem will respond. But however, even though all the bad stuff has happened, we haven't seen God's response. And so these bad mice, these bad rodents, and they took also our non-movable possessions, means our landed possessions. They took our houses, our fields. They took them away from us while we were still there, among them. And they also took our life away. They chased us out. Not that we could go somewhere else where we wanted to go, but like because previously, when Jews were chased out of a country, they found their own way to go to somewhere else. They were chased out of Germany, they went to Poland. No, they sent us off to a land that was barren, that was forsaken. And there the people are dying in hunger. Everything that I've mentioned here, that I've enumerated here, is only like a drop in the ocean compared to all the things that we did without being guilty. Rak ma shano zera Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, just the word Jews, the descendants of Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. And Nishbar kol matel lano lachinu b'nei Yisrael kol yoshim malchut Eirofa. And all the staff, or for us and our brothers who live under the kingdoms of Europe, is there anything worse than this kind of dachkut, oppression and poor paucity? This is what the pasuk in Tzvanya says, Prophet Tzvanya. I'm going to leave in your midst a poor nation, a nation that is poor and bereft, and they will they'll have turn of refuge to Hashem in the name of Hashem. And the same thing comes up in Sefer Shmuel. You're going to save a poor nation. As it says in the Zohar, the final galut, the final diaspora, the final exile, it's going to be very poor. Paucity and poorness will happen to the Jewish people. As it says in the Prophet Tzvanya, so Tzvanya says, I'm going to leave for you poor people who have nothing, who are going to rely upon Hashem, that you will save a poor people. And the rich people will not want to help us. They'll say they can't help because of the mas, the difficult taxes that are on them. That's false. The rich people will not help the poor people in this final exile. They're going to hide their money. They're going to not require, in other words, there are those who can, and those who are kind and those who try to help us will not even have to go into mikveh and lukewarm water, but they're going to achieve the level of purification from the times of Mashiach. And they will not require purification in boiling water like even the wicked people do, and it quotes the pasuk. So all this about that in the future time when God will redeem us, things are going to be bad. And that's really true. There are rich people today, wealthy people, who could have helped us. They don't help us really. There are a few rich people, and they didn't reach out when they saw difficulties happening in different communities. And guess what happened? Their wealth was also lost. They didn't help the Jews. And it went to the waste. Biyad Esav Arash, in the hands of Esav the wicked. It went to the Nazis. We saw this in Slovakia. First they took the poor people. V'yetzlam that kayim divrei Zohar, and the Zohar said, "Kol davar she'yavo bo'esh tavir bo'esh," that everyone that goes through fire will pass through Shabbat Rosh Hagolut. They were actually among the exiled as well. So having riches did not even help these people. They thought they could save it for themselves and not help fellow Jews. Nothing saved them. There is one of the letters of one of the writings of Rav Teichel talks about when they opened the soup kitchen. And this is Slovakia before he ran away. And the soup kitchen was a united effort among the different factions of the community. They were, religious and non-religious. They all came together. And he talks about, finally we have achdus among the Jewish people. But the difficulty was, of course, the soup kitchen was not just for the truly indigent. They were for people who had been people of means at one point, who lost everything. In other words, it's not for the usual homeless, they're not for the usual characters. It was something that was made for people who had once upon a time been independent, but because of the decrees, the Nuremberg laws and others, they lost everything. They took away everything, and these people were forced to subsist on this soup kitchen. This was the early part of the war, and he was one of the people who spoke at this, and he talked about this, and we have that found in his documents. So this is all about. This proves that in the future time, guess what will happen? We will be, it'll be bad. That is specifically the time that Kadosh Baruch Hu will save us. So what he's proven now is that, not only can it happen when things are not perfect, it has to happen through Eretz Yisrael, and more importantly, the time to happen could be right now. It's a perfect storm for the Geula to happen because of all the difficulties. Don't think the difficulties are punishments. The difficulties are the setup when HaKadosh Baruch Hu will actually take us to the Geula. Because the other approach, the opposing side was saying, no, this shows that we've turned away from Hashem. Things are not good because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is punishing us with this. He's saying, no, this is actually the catalyst to go to Israel, and more importantly, this is the actual setup that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will redeem the Jewish people. Okay, and now a few words about the people in the United States. Okay, V'yata. So I want to give thanks to the people in America. Ki leit michat has, what do you call it? Zant. Irgun what's the Hebrew here? Joint. This is the Joint Distribution Committee, so often called the Joint, which sent money to Europe, and they collected this money for Europe, and they sent it to them. Shalahem ba'od shayuchol mishlach l'kan tmichatam kodem shepartz mechama hayinu gozim b'ra'av, that they sent to us as much as they could before the war, when there was still money was coming in, and if not for the fact they sent us all this stuff, we would have died b'ra'av. Kasher bemet me'et shepaskat tmichatam haydir mechama, as in fact, once their aid was stopped because during the war the borders were closed, there was no money coming from the Joint Distribution Committee from the free world. And guess what happened? Many of our brethren who relied upon the money from the Joint Distribution Committee are now starving and dying from it. Poland. Many of our brethren have died in the famine in Poland. They're willing to send it. There's no stoppage on their part, just they're being precluded because of the barriers, because of the warring factions, the warring countries. So Yizkar Hashem Zot Lahem L'Tova, God should remember them for good. B'schut Zeh Yinatzlu Mikol Tzar V'Sukkah, they should be safe from all kinds of difficulty and trouble. V'Alehem Amar, and this is what Yeshaya says, B'Tzedakah Tochichenu, that they will be, through charity you shall be established. V'Gdol Tzedakah Shemakarevet Gula, and Tzedakah brings together Gula. So thank goodness for the Joint, who helped us as much as they could. We hope it's going to be restarted, basically. V'yayin b'tfilah l'Moshe Rabbeinu Baal, v'ayin b'tfilah l'Moshe Rabbeinu Baal Heshiv Moshe, and the author of the Heshiv Moshe quotes something in his Sefer Tfilah l'Moshe. It's not the Tfilah l'Moshe paragraph in Tillim, that's the name of his book, which he says Shemevi Medrash, that says La'eti lavo ba'im kol sari mala v'yomru, that in the future time all the sarim, all the angels, all the nobility in heaven will come, and they will come to Hashem and they say, V'yomru ki masa panim yesh l'chol afanecha, do you have partiality? Halacha megalim arayot v'shovchei damim v'yalalu. These people are doing gilui aras. The Gentiles are doing a gilui aras. These Gentiles are murderers, and the Jews are doing the same thing. The Jews are not so good also. So what's the difference between the Jews and the Gentiles? Manishtanu elu me'elu. So Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu Michael. So God will say to the Michael, the archangel Michael, Emor Lahem Tshuva, give him an answer. Tell him what the difference is between the Jews, why the Jews are better. And Nishtatek Michael will have nothing to say, which is, it says Ba'itahi Yamod Michael will stand in Daniel. It says in Daniel, but it doesn't say anything. Ein Amida Alashtika, standing is standing quietly. Shenemar, and he quotes a pasuk. Amar Yechash Baruch Michael Nishtatacht. You standing quietly, you've got nothing to say. I'm going to respond to all these ministering angels who are kind of attacking the Jewish people. You know what makes the Jewish people better? They give tzedakah one to another. The other nations of the world don't. This is what it says in Yeshaya. I spoke with tzedakah, and I will give the great to help them. So therefore, you see that giving tzedakah is one of the hallmarks of the Jewish people, and in fact it is. Jews, as a general rule, give a higher rate of charity than non-Jews.
What is the relationship to committing adultery and murder?
Well, the Jews are not such great tzaddikim.
No, I understand. So what does giving tzedakah mean as far as that thing is concerned?
So the angels are accusing the Jewish people. Why do you, God, favor the Jewish people?
Yeah.
They're not righteous, the Gentiles aren't righteous. They sin, they sin. They don't do mitzvot, they don't do mitzvot. Jews are like the Goyim, which is probably true. Okay, I don't want to say it that way, but most of the Jewish people are indistinguishable in terms of their values from Western values. So what makes the Jews better? So Kadosh Baruch Hu says, you know what makes the Jews better in the bottom line? Tzedakah. Doesn't wipe out the slave, but it means they've got one up on the rest of the world. I'm just pointing out that this medrash really reflects a reality. The Jews happen to be a very charitable people. It happens to be that as Jews progress in the social strata of society, they tend to direct their charity to non-Jewish causes. Okay, so it may be charity more than tzedakah. They build hospitals, they build social institutions, they give all kinds of money, right? And we know this to be true. The rich people, at least. So, but the bottom line is, as a people, as a cultural group, they happen to give a higher rate of charity than other groups. Something inbred being a Jew. I don't know what to say. So that's the one thing we have up. So you see that tzedakah can somehow help the Jewish people's cause. It doesn't wipe out all the other sins. It's not a way to bribe God, but simply God is saying this is what makes them a little better. So therefore, writes the Rav Teichel, he's actually talking about the Jews in America.
Okay.
He's going to the Jews in America. The Jews in America in the 1930s, this was not the strong Orthodox Jewish world that we see today. Jews in America were basically secular. They were leftists, they were communists, they were socialists, they were Bundists. There was a whole push to leave Jewish tradition behind. The Jews are breaking out of the ghetto, they're moving away. So tzaddikim lach we're not going to find in Jews. America is called the Treif of Medina. Right? But they gave money. Okay? That doesn't mean the money bribes, but it is a schus.
Right.
So therefore, Batuach ani she'alachenu b'nei Yisrael yoshvei medinas America. So I know therefore the Jewish people who live in America, Kivan HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'tshuvato. This is what God was referring to in this medrash. He's talking about the Jews in America. Ani Hashem adaver tzedakah. I'm the God who speaks because they're giving tzedakah. V'schut zeh yivashu. They will be saved. V'yizku l'rot b'yishuatam shel Yisrael. They'll get to see the redemption of the Jewish people. V'yinatzlu min chomer dechev leMashiach. And they should be saved from the difficulties of the pangs of Mashiach. Bizarre Shevedi, as I mentioned earlier on. The Elo Shehein Bale China Vechista Vale Rachmin. This is all kind of flowery stuff. Or they do Chein and Chesed and Bal Rachmin Rachem Alanim Avyonim. They have mercy on poor people. Sagile Behagala Kalachud. They should only have a simple burning out. In other words, when you get to Gehenna and you get to the burning out, some type of people are going to get burned to white hot, some people get burned to red hot, some people are just going to get a washing over to boiling hot water. Like you say, when it comes to kashrus, something that's only used with treif when it's cold, you only got to wash it out with cold water. Something that was put on the fire, you got to really burn it out with heat. America shows him tzedakah that they give a lot of tzedakah yatzum and tziruf the chevle Mashiach tziruf kalachod. No, go have a small difficulty, like the Divrei Zohar says. So therefore, he has this long excursus really about the Jewish people, how wonderful, charitably they are. They have all these financial assets. America is seen as the land of plenty. It's the land where you can make a fortune. It's the land where people did make a fortune. And that schut is they turn it back. Many of them turn it back to supporting people in Europe as much as they could. So what does this have to do with anything? So now he comes back to Mashiach, right? So what he's really saying is that the people actually in America are having it pretty good. The Imtoma, and if therefore you'll ask, Halo Achinu Bnei Yisrael Shebarzot Habrit will be England, the people living in America and in England. These are people living in the free world. Yoshvim b'menucha v'hashket. They're living with tranquility and peace. Ubakavod, like everything else is as it was. Kimikedem, nothing has changed. V'ein tziruf kal lo ba'alem, and no difficulties come on them. V'atziruf shechav l'mashiach tzarich sheyavo l'chlal kol Yisrael kulo kol mishot ha'gula. And everything I've written to you says that it's going to be really tough for everybody around. So how can the gula come if these Jews are having it really good? If they're not going to suffer, Kidach Sibin Daniel, Yidbaru, Yitlabnu, Yitzarfu Rabim, all the multitude is going to have this shakeout and this cleansing and this cleaning. It's going to happen to all the people, as it says in the Zohar Leveti. It hasn't happened to them. They're getting off the hook. How can they be part of this if nothing has even happened to them? It hasn't reached them. So I'll tell you, here's what my response is, and this is a little tricky. The trouble that we have, the difficulties and the destitution and the embarrassment and the losses that we've had, it happens to them too. If it's not the level we had, it also happened to them a little bit, as I'm going to explain to you. I'm going to explain as follows. Divrei Rabbeinu Hamaral Miprag, we say for Gvurat Hashem. Famous Maharal writes in Gvuras Hashem, which is about the redemption from Egypt. Shehevi Medrash, she brings a Medrash of Vayosha Shem B'Yom Ahu, that the Jewish people were saved in that day. This is at Kriyat Yam Suf. The Uzzah Shel Mitzrayim, the Uzzah, which was the guardian angel of the Egyptians, Kitre Gal Yisrael, he came to accuse the Jewish people who are being chased by the Egyptians, and the Egyptians are drowning, or about to be drowned, and the Jewish people are about to be saved. So the guardian angel comes to God and says, guess what, you promised the Jews to be there 400 years, and they're not there 400 years, they're only in Egypt for how many years? 210, you got to take them back. And God responds, Michael Hasar Yashiv Chual Zev V'lo Yada Lashiv. So God says to Michael, okay, Michael, you're the guardian angel of Jews. You respond to Uzzah, the guardian angel of the Mitzrayim. And Michael says, I don't know what to say. So God says, Ani Yashiv, I'll respond. Kilo Amarti, I didn't say Be'eretz Mitzrayim. I didn't say 400 years in Eretz Mitzrayim. El Be'eretz Lo Lahem, the land that's not theirs. We discussed this yesterday. V'chashvina mileid Yitzchak. It goes back to the birth of Yitzchak. Ad kana medrash. So therefore, this is the response that God gives to Uzzah when Michael did not know how to respond. That's what the Medrash says. V'tzarich levhavin. You have to understand. Lama malach Michael lo yechol lashiv tshuvas. Why couldn't Michael give this answer? It's a simple answer. Halo nirmaz b'kra behedya. It's very clearly in the Psukim. It says it's not something God made up. Look in the Psukim. God says you'll be there 400 years. Be'eretz lo lahem, in the land not yours. It doesn't say Egypt. U'bi'era gaon eloki hanal. And therefore the Maharal, this holy man, said as follows: Ki be'emet b'chinat hagalut v'hagirut shel Avram lo yivchun l'shum malach. That the difficulty of Avram as an exile, and the galut, and the being a stranger of Avram Avinu could not be understood by a malach. Why? Ki Avram Avinu haya ashir gadol v'nichbad v'ram b'nei kol. Avram did pretty well. He was wealthy, he had wealth, he was given kavod. Ukmoshe Amru, as they say, when he comes to bury Sarah, Nasiya Elokim atah b'tochenu, you are a prince of God. So they gave him kavod of Medrash Amru, and it says, Sheratzu lekablo aleim lemelech v'leloka. They wanted to actually accept Avraham to be their king and to be their God, almost to say when they came to bury Sarah. And they v'loratz al-kabel, and he didn't want to accept it, but they treated him very nicely. Because Avram says, I can't be your king, I can't be your leader, because there is a leader already. Nothing is missing. God is the leader. Avram was very rich and very well respected. How can you say Avram was a stranger? Which is the response that God gives. So Michal couldn't say that. How could you say that Avram was in Galut? Which is the way we answer and say the 400 years go back to the birth of Yitzchak. It was not discernible that Avram was in this difficult state because not so bad. And even the Malachim who were on this high level couldn't discern that Avram was in a state of being a stranger and in difficulty. The only one who could understand this, only the Almighty could understand the difference between living in Israel and not living in Israel, owning Israel, maintaining Israel, being your land, being a king in your land. Therefore, Michal could not answer this. Who's the only one who could give the answer? Only the Almighty. This is what the Maharal says. So this is how the Maharal explains when Uzzah comes to God and says, take the Jews back, they still got to be 190 more years. What happened to 400 years? And Michal does not know how to respond. The God has to say this, you know what, I promised 400 years in Eretz Lo Lahem, not in Eretz Mitzrayim. Even though the 190 years that they were living in Israel, Avram and Yitzchak didn't have it so bad. They were treated nicely. So Michal couldn't say that because they didn't have it so bad. Only God could recognize there's still a drop difference, not being in control of your own destiny. That's why God had to respond, etc., etc. This is what the Maharal says. V'agaon marim padwa v'diav basin of brisk b'sefer nachlei mayim piresh b'zeh ma'shenemer v'agoda. This is what it means in Agoda. Who says the Maram Padwa? Baruch Hashem. Shakadosh Baruch Hu chishav et haketz lasot k'mo shenemar av Avram Avinu. This is a quote from the Haggadah. That says Baruch Hashem, that Kadosh Baruch Hu figured out the kates. Hainu shehu be'atzmo levado hu yachol lasot the cheshbon haketz. Only God could figure it out, and not anyone else. Not even the archangel Michael could figure it out. So what does this have to do, therefore, with the Jewish people? So even though the Jewish people who are living in the United States are not having it so bad, but guess what? They don't really have it completely perfect. Something is happening to them. What's happening to them? The fact that Jews are suffering in the world affects a Jew anywhere in the world. That's what he's going to say. And Al Kol Panim, therefore, this is the middle of page 128 and the middle of page 90. Al Kol Panim, we're actually going to finish. Al Kol Panim anu ro'im sha'arbei bechinot yesh bebechinat galut. There are different levels in the galut. K'mo ken ani omer al achenu b'nei Yisrael yoshvei Artzot Habrit u'sham medinot. It's the same thing about the Jews living in Artzot Habrit, in the United States and other countries. If the troubles we have did not reach them, in some way, in some aspect, and in some kind of respect, it happened, it affects them as well. Why? They're joining us and they're connected to our tzara, and they're crying more with us. Ki chvodam nilka amenu bein shchenem hagoyim, that their kavod, their honor, has been broken or been weakened or been hit among their Gentile neighbors. Ki haga be'atzmecha, but just think for a moment. Bein shchena sam hagoyim korim bitanut, when the Gentiles read in the papers, or shomim et haradio, or hear on the radio, mikol elo hashaflut shenasa itanapo, and they hear about what happens to Jews in Europe, and they know that they live with Jews in America. Hachi ein kavod atzmam nishpal, isn't their level of self-respect knocked down and decreased? Gam kein beinei shchenehem sham, because they'll say bi'amram, the non-Jews will say ra'u ma shosim imachehem hisham v'sham. Look what happened to your brethren. You guys are not really the same like us. You're worse than us. Look what even happened to Jews. You're part of the Jewish community. Look at the Jews in Europe. If they're suffering, what does it say about you? You're not a full-blown American. You're not a full-blown kavod person. They're put down, and they're embarrassed, or they're made less respectable. In some kind of degree. And also, they also try to be involved in supporting us with their donations. But this is it's very small, it's very light compared to what we have done to us. It's going to be compared a little bit to comparison to us. We can compare it to a small galut, a small put down to them compared to us. So they're also suffering. They're not really suffering, but they are suffering. If we're suffering, they're being put down and they're being disrespected. And they will be yotze, their obligation to suffer, as we explained above, that every Jew has to suffer before the Gula. And God will include their suffering and their put down, their decrease in respect, because Jews in Europe are being put down. According to everything the Zohar said before. And what do we have to do? We have to just actually just waken up first, and God will do the rest for us. Okay. By the way, the page on 129 is simply just a footnote. It's all part of the long footnote on 129. Okay, that's where that goes. A little confusing, right? So from page 128, you go to page 30. That was quick. Okay, we can look at the footnote when we finish, maybe. Okay, the keys we should kind of awaken to return to our land, means Israel. Because only through this. Only for this is all this sorrows have really come to the Jewish people now, to push us, to kick us in the pants to go to Eretz Yisrael. This will be then carried out. Will go with an outstretched hand. Amen. End. Then he concludes it. He gives you the date. Slik Perik Rishon. This is the end of chapter 1. Vashem Yishmor Otono Kishon. This is like a little bit of a rhyme. Perik Rishon, Yishon. V'niskel of Not Tzion Yerushalayim Shnigro Rishon. We should build Tzion and Yerushalayim, which is also called Rishon. Ki L'Seder, Beis L'Seder, B'nai Yisrael Yotzum B'Yad Ramah. This is on the second day of the week in which we read the pasuk of B'nai Yisrael Yotzum B'Yad Ramah, which is the parsha of B'Shalach, which you just referred to before, about the Jewish people go out with a strong hand. This is started with Uzzah and Michal and so forth. Shnat Gimel Shin Taf, which is of 5,703. Ela Kodesh Lefokan Po Ir Habira Budapest Here we are in the capital of Budapest. So this is the in 1943, and the beginning of Parsha Shlach, B'Shalach, I should say. Parsha B'Shalach is the winter. Right, we're now this week Parshas Vayigash. We have about 5-6 weeks until we come to B'Shalach. There's Chavechi, Shmot, Va'era, Bo, B'Shalach. So you know where we are in the middle of December. So about 5 weeks from now, it's going to be the end of January. It's going to be January of 1943. January of 1943. Now, what's just interesting is it took him. This is January 1943. He writes the second chapter. He's going to finish that on Wednesday of Parshat Mishpatim in 1943. So the next chapter he writes furiously. Okay, so this he takes up until here B'Shalach. After B'Shalach is Bo B'Shalach Yitro, and then Mishpatim. Did I miss a week? 2 weeks. And that's chapter 2. And then chapter 3, he also gives a date when he finishes this. Chapter 3 is a very long chapter. I'm going to put it here. Chapter 3, he finishes on, where are we up to? He doesn't write the year. There's actually, no, there is. This is an addendum at the end of chapter 3. If I can find where the year is. No, I'm not going to look for it. There's a short excursus at the end. Yeah, here it is. He finishes this on the 23rd of Elul, 1943. So he goes to chapter 3, which is a very long chapter. He takes him from, what do we say, not B'Shalach, but Mishpatim, which is 7 weeks from now, it's like February, all the way to Elul of that year. And then he writes one more chapter, and the chapter he finishes, does he say when he finishes it? He finishes it on the Shabbos of 1943, which Thursday night, on which Shabbos is this? Parshas Vayera. This is he writes the chapter 4 from Elul. No. From Elul to Elul to Parshas Vayera. So it's about 5-6 weeks. On the same year, it's now 1943. It's now the next year in the Jewish calendar, 5704. So he writes it pretty quickly. That's the most amazing thing. And his daughter, there's a biography that his daughter published in Hebrew, which I haven't seen. I've read parts of the excerpts. She writes that when she was writing, he would just sit for hours and then just write. He felt he was under the gun, and he was. And he actually was able to complete this book, which he then gave to. He published it. It was published. And it was found and it was disseminated in 1943. And then, of course, later he was actually sent away when they kind of took apart Budapest in 1944 or 45. He was sent to a concentration camp. He was sent to maybe Auschwitz, I don't remember. And then, of course, in the last month of the war, they were breaking up the concentration camps and sending him further internally. That's when he was killed on one of the trains, where he stood up for another Jew they took the bread away from him. Okay. So that takes us to the end of chapter number 1. Okay.
I'm not sure I understand is he saying that because America is so wealthy, then his people might question his thesis that they have time of suffering, and in fact America is suffering because they feel the pain.
They feel the pain of others, or not just they feel the pain of others, they're put down because he's come up with his basic premise has been that first of all, you don't have to be a tzaddik to bring the Gula. Second of all, you got to get to Israel to bring the Gula. Third of all, in order to get to Israel, we're going to have all the suffering. And suffering is part of the immediacy of bringing the Gula. So you got to suffer, we'll take you to Israel, and then you'll be redeemed. But the suffering is a part of this. If this is true, that explains why all the Jews in Europe are suffering. It's good news, right? We're coming close to the Gula. But however, if the Jews in North America and England are not,
then it's going to be delayed.
Then it hasn't happened. It has to happen to all the Jewish. You can't just redeem half the Jewish people. So you got to prove that people are suffering. So the Jews in America are not suffering. the country goes on. You could argue that they do suffer. There's an economic crisis that takes place. The stock market crashes in 1929. It takes a while until they recover. The only reason the economy actually recovers is really not because of FDR makes this. I forgot the name of his plan. The New Deal. That's
chicken in every pot.
That's not what really brought the economy back. What brought the economy back would become a war economy. And as a result, a lot had to be produced, and industries were turned over into making ammunition and tanks and jeeps and so forth. So that's what brought the economy out of the doldrums. So there is suffering going on, but it's not the physical suffering the Jews in Europe take place. So what he tries to say is, first of all, they're good people and they're giving tzedakah. Tzedakah can sometimes make a bad situation good. Why is it a bad situation? Because they're not so religious. So it can improve it. Second, it's Mari.
It's tax deductible too.
Well, yeah, but that's not the issue. The other thing he tries to say is they are suffering. The moment the Jews, a large segment of Jews are suffering in Europe, the Jews in America are suffering. It's true and it's not true. Well, no, I think it's more than they just put down. You go to work and they say, hey, your people, do you see what happened to your people? Your people are being killed in Europe. That's your people, not our people, your people. So that's so they feel a bit of a put down among the society they're trying to make it with. So that's a deprecation of who they are. It's not a physical suffering, but it's good enough, as he says, b'yotze yidei chovatam. B'yotze zayin what they have to suffer. That's the premise. That's actually a very shaky premise.
What about all the poor people that are suffering all over the world that are not Jewish?
What about them?
Does this have anything to do with?
So that's just a social society. The Jews are being persecuted in Europe. It's not about
persecuted in Africa too.
Yes, they are. So you have to ask them about their theology. I don't know.
No, I know, but when we talk about bringing forth the Mashiach, are we also talking about the rest of the nations also?
Well, he's very parochial, speaking only about the Jewish people.
No, I understand. That's what I'm asking.
Right, so I'm going to Israel, not going to Uganda where the Africans are. So, but the key is that the last piece is actually, the truth is the center of the Jewish world was real Europe in the 30s and 40s, or 30s. The United States was not. The United States had a lot of Jews who were immigrating, right? Well, large immigration takes place actually right after the war. Most of my friends when I was a kid, most of their parents were Europeans who came over after the war, right, or came over either right before the war. I happen to have American parents. Both my parents were American, which was very unusual, extremely unusual. So it was not the strong country of Judaism that it was Europe. What happened is a number of the religious leaders were saved during the war. They transplant to North America and they become leaders that are there. The number of the Rebbes are smuggled out of Europe. Chap1 Rabbi was brought out of Europe, right? A number of the others. The sons of Rebbe was smuggled out of Europe. I'm sorry? Klausenberg Rebbe was with. So a number of them are actually brought out. Rav Teichel decides he wants to stay. He never even discusses whether it was a possibility. He ensures he wants to be with his people. The Elzer Rebbe is brought out of Europe. But it's these people and others were brought, other scholars, other Talmidei Chachamim were brought out of Europe to go to yeshivas in North America. They got on special visas and permits to come in. But they were not Americans. They were still teaching in Yiddish and still teaching in...
He's promoting Israel as the step to bring Mashiach.
Yes, correct.
And he himself never goes.
That's correct. Why he couldn't?
It wasn't this one.
He couldn't go.
But he could have.